That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by our friend Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We are just, digesting, computing, analyzing, the usual after a 40-minute talk with the old ball coach. How about that? It's a
Yeah,
little
that was
different.
longer than expected.
Yeah, a little different, wasn't it? I shouldn't
Well,
be surprised, Mitch, because we know, like, whatever it is that he wants to get out, he's going to get out regardless of the line of question. I kind of want to start with the clip that we played with kind of the general manager deal, and
yeah.
he's so finite in details, right? And I think Stewart kind of wanted to get closer to home, and there's lots of reasons and to take the job. But when you talk about the brain trust and the knowledge needed to move forward, you he was so detailed on what he wanted him to do. It seems like the more people he brings in, Mitch, the more control he gains, which seems backwards to adding to your staff, right? Do you get that sense?
That's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah, I think so. In a certain the control in the way that he wants to have control. Yes, I mean if you're a head coach or a manager of an organization that just wants to make every decision and not be challenged, then no. But I think for Matt Rhule, like control, it's like there's two parts to the word control. Control is like having you being the only decider, no, but it's also like keeping things under control and having a smooth operations. The thing that he's done here, and this started with Dana Holgerson, and then you had Phil Snow come on board. And remember, initially they both came on board in some role at the same time. Holgerson, of course, was running the offense while Snow was still consulting, but now they're both huge pieces of the staff. And then I think with Mike Eckler, as we learned a little bit about more about their relationship, Rhule and Eckler's relationship in the Tuesday chat with the head coach, and now with Pat Stewart, what you're finding is four people who were not a part of this staff before November of 2024, all of whom are going to challenge Matt Rhule in his way of thinking in a way that probably didn't exist before that. It didn't exist for the first 21 or 22 games of Rhule's time at Nebraska. And in some way, yeah, that's about the head coach having more control because he's controlling the variables. And all of those guys are going to give him their opinion. Like nobody is going to be in that group is going to shy away from coming into his office or going up to him on the practice field or having a discussion that might not have been had in the for the majority of the first two seasons that Rhule was in charge of this program.
I agree with you. And I like the insight because I think you have some based on your guys' relationship too, where he strikes me as Coach Rule strikes me as one of those people, Mitch, that the more smart people that he's around, the better he is because he's very good at processing quickly. He doesn't need to be the smartest guy in the room, but he's very good at adjusting to how he can figure out how to maneuver in the room. So I think the more data he gets and the more information he gets, it plays to his strengths if he can just if he trusts you enough where he can just receive what you're telling him. Like I think he'll actually be better.
Yeah, it's fair. I agree. I don't have a lot to add on top of that. I think what you said is right. I think that's part of the reason why this time of year, when he says, "Oh, this is my favorite time of year," and we didn't hear that yesterday, but we've heard it the past 2 years in the spring. I'm sure it'll come up when they get back from spring break and he gets the team out at practice. He loves this time of year because you can do that stuff, because you can take the information that you're gathering, whether you're gathering it on your own or now in the case of some of these new coaches, you're getting insight from them and you can process it. Like in the heat of the season, there's not as much time for that. You always, even if it's a bye week, the days are short until you have a game to play on the field. But this time of year allows for all kinds of opportunities to process and get better and take the information that you gather from your staff and improve your organization. So that to me that's like an explanation of why this time of year, which some people in football despise, is actually Matt Rhule's favorite period on the calendar.
Mitch, I'm curious. We've talked to a lot of people and heard a lot of people in our comments and things today. I'm curious for you, what moved the needle for you most yesterday?
There was more than one thing. I'll just give you two from Rhule. Him talking about Dylan and being willing to go where he did about his quarterback. Like, I don't think that was off the cuff. When Rhule said that he can't be a 240-pound quarterback and be effective, like, that didn't just come out of the air. He didn't pull that one down. Like, he knew he was going to say that going into the press conference. Like, it was cool with Dylan's camp, I'm sure. Because you know what the reaction to that's going to be. That's low-hanging fruit for like every other fan base that is a rival of Nebraska's. They're going to be throwing that back in his face, and so they want that. Like, they want that motivation, like that stated goal, that something that's not vague to be out there. And I think it's fine, like, as long as you approach it the right way. Like, that one, and we could go more into that, but that one
Well, I guarantee you Ravi's got a follow-up. Don't worry.
that one was notable. I thought his explanation about the interaction that he had with Mike Eckler, some of the interactions that he had with Mike Eckler were hilarious, like in a way that was not press conference funny, when he told the story about meeting Eck in the morning, and Eck said, how are you? And Rhule said, good. And he said, we're not good. We're great around here. And Rhule was like, no, Mike, I'm from New York. Like, I'm good. That was really funny. Like,
I guarantee you that's verbatim.
Yeah. I really, really hope that actually happened and it wasn't just symbolic of their relationship. I assume it probably did. So that one, and I think that like sheds
he's not going to be able to stand a t-shirt slogan guy. Like,
yeah,
I think that's why Eck, he better like the fact that he teaches, because that is, I mean, Eck talks almost too much for Rhule. He may be the antithesis of what he normally would gravitate towards, except for the fact he's a phenomenal teacher.
Yeah, well, he said that. He said that exact thing, and so I think that sheds some light on their relationship, which I think can be very good for both of them. And then the third one I'd say is when Dane Key talked about Holgorsen. And he said, if you don't want to be the guy, then just go ahead and stay at Kentucky. But if you want to be the guy, then come here. You have to really know the player that you're dealing with if you're going to say that. And you don't generally get to know the players that well when they're coming on portal visits. But Holgorsen tapped into the knowledge that he had with Key because of Da'Keel Shorts. Like, there's a huge relationship, of course, between Holgorsen and Shorts, and then also between Shorts and Key. So he was able to take advantage of that. And Key, he knew when he said that, like, that Key was going to be the type of guy who would be like, I want to be the guy. Like, that stood out with him enough that 3 months later, Dane Key is still talking and still thinking about that. So that I think was really insightful into like who Dana Holgorsen is, as not just as a coach, but as a communicator with his ability to motivate players.
Okay, Mitch, I want to go back to your first point here with the part with Dylan Raiola, because I agree with you that doesn't get said if it's not cool with his camp, if it's not been talked about with Dylan already. My question to you is, what did you think about the fact that he actually brought up a number? Because that seemed to sort of make people lose their minds yesterday. And I don't know how important that was in the general point, but it seems to be a point of fixation for the general public.
Well, first of all, it's only 10 pounds heavier than what Dylan's listed out on the roster. So it's not like it's a shock.
Like you said, 80, right?
What's that?
Like you said, 280. Right?
Well, if you had said 280, then you'd have known that it was like hyperbole, and then that would like have lost some of the impact. But the fact that he said 240 is like, oh, Dylan's 240. Okay, like, yeah, he should probably be playing at like 220, which is fine. Like, I don't have concerns about this because I've watched Dylan attack the quarterback position, like attack his learning of the quarterback position and his growth and development from the time that he was a high school freshman, and you've seen how dedicated and devoted he is to that. And so I have complete confidence that he's going to handle this situation with the same kind of dedication, like he's going to be fine. Like if this is the biggest concern, which it probably isn't, but if this was the biggest concern, the biggest thing that he needed to fix going into his sophomore year, then like you ought to feel pretty good. Like, cause he is dedicated. Like Dylan wants to be an NFL quarterback, like not want, like he knows he's going to be an NFL quarterback in his mind. So like, he's not going to let something like this stand in his way. Like, yeah, he can get in better shape. And I think he will. But you have to remember, like he's 19 and he's coming off of his freshman year of college, and he's got genetics to deal with when it comes to his body composition. His dad's offensive lineman, his uncle's an offensive lineman. Like for some people, it's just not as easy to like maintain 220 pounds if you're 6'3". So I'm totally fine with the fact that Rhule put it out there, and like I don't think it's cause for alarm. Like I would be willing to bet that when camp opens in August, you're going to look at him and go, wow, he looks a lot better.
Listen,
or
Mitch,
looks good.
some of us to maintain 220 pounds at 5'9". All right, so like I get it. I've been there.
Mitch, let me ask you something. How did it land with you when asked about kind of the D line? And he kind of, he waxed poetic about Nash and Jamari and MJ and Kai. Was that? Did you look at that as a vote of confidence for the young guys coming up, or was it like, hey, you guys better understand kind of what we had a year ago? They're better than they were given credit for. Like, how did that little excerpt, which I thought was interesting, that he gave, he expounded, right? That's one of those 6-minute things.
Mm-hmm.
How'd that land with you?
Honestly, haven't thought that much about that yet until you brought that up. But because there was so much else from him and the players. But yeah, I think the latter of your two explanations, I think he was making a point about how good those players were. And he flat out said that about Ty Robinson, about how we didn't probably appreciate how good Ty Robinson was. And, some of that I think is just him wanting to promote them so that all of those guys get an opportunity at the next level. And some of it was like a word of warning. Like, don't expect Nebraska's D-line to come out against Cincinnati and look the same way that it did when it was clicking, when things were going well this last season. But I think if we talk to him more about the defensive line, and we talk to him more about the group that Braden and I think you have to put Phil Simpson with that group too. Even though he's coaching the Jacks, like I just think there's going to be more more carryover, more interaction between those two groups. Like I don't think it's going to all look the same as a year ago, in part because of the personnel, in part because you have. And we'll see if these two guys mature to the point where they are your bookends in 2025. It might be 2026 with these two. Everybody wants Keona Davis and Williams Nwaneri to be ready in 2025 to just create havoc for Nebraska in the pass rush. And I'm sure they're bringing those guys along. I know they're bringing those guys along as fast as they can, but they're probably on like a little bit of a different time schedule than Elijah Judy and even Riley Van Poppel, and some of the other pieces they have up front, Cam Lenhart. So they have a lot of good players at the front, and it may end up being a better collection of talent, like all the players in the program on the D line right now, than the four that you mentioned that are gone. But it's going to take time. They're not all there right now.
So, Mitch, I'm sure you've noticed being in a lot of these press conferences, when Rhule brings up a specific player's name, it tends to be for a purpose, right? Like he doesn't typically answer a lot of questions about specific players. Even when he's asked, he tends to pivot a little bit and sort of give a more general answer. But sometimes he'll be asked kind of a more general question and he'll bring up specific guys, which is what I thought it was interesting when he brought up the guys on the defensive line yesterday, because he sort of went out of his way to say, hey, Cam Lenhart's ready. He said that one really fast. He said Riley Van Poppel's ready. Elijah Judy's ready. Keona Davis is ready. Like, when you hear that part of it, are you – because I thought when he was talking about the guys that are leaving, I thought he was just trying to get them drafted, personally. Like, that's how I took it. But when he's talking about these guys, I'm wondering, okay, is he trying to let these guys know he thinks they're ready, or is he trying to let these guys know they need to be ready?
A little bit of both. They know they need to be ready. Like I don't think you can be any of those. I maybe take Davis out of it because he's just a redshirt freshman, but the other guys have been in the program for multiple years, and they know that it's their time, that the players who were ahead of them last year have departed and like they're at the top of the food chain. So I think those guys, they don't need to hear that from Matt Rhule that they need to be ready. I think he's trying to do the kind of the whole thing that he does where he sends a message to them a little bit through some of the stuff that he says publicly. Like he puts it out there. Like he's talked to these guys, I'm sure, about what's expected of them next season. Or if he hasn't, he will be very soon. I'm sure he has, or he wouldn't have brought it up publicly. And it puts a little bit more urgency, a little more pressure on them, good pressure, if he says it the way that he did yesterday. So that's all it was to me.
What do you think of Rocco? I thought it was interesting that he talked about his departure at Notre Dame and kind of them having a different vision, which I think there's this assumption of Notre Dame and what he's supposed to be able to come in here and do, and we see fictitious NIL numbers floated and stuff like that. Did that change your expectation level if you pit it against how Coach Rhule described what little he had seen of him since he'd been here? Because he didn't really gush as much as he said, hey, we've got another big guy, powerful guy that can move people. He was very general. Did you, am I read? I don't know. It could be me, how I process information. What did you think kind of hearing Rocco and then have Coach Rhule talk about him before that?
Yeah, I think I had something preconceived in my mind about Rocco and his departure from Notre Dame, in part because I've heard him do an interview where he talked about it, and it just sounded like there were competing philosophies where he felt like the tide was shifting in favor of some younger players, and he just wasn't happy with the way that the outlook appeared for him to be able to use next season to get where he wants to get. So it was like I see the writing on the wall. It's been great. I don't want to do this, but I feel like I have to. So that didn't really change because I thought what Rocco said about that kind of backed up what I already believed about it. As far as Rhule, I mean, we didn't hear Rhule really go deep on any of the transfers.
I don't think he's going to.
Yeah, last year he kind of did a little bit on Jamal Banks at this time, and I don't think that impacted anything. Banks, I mean, his numbers were fine, but they probably weren't what a lot of people envisioned.
You know what I think
overall production.
You know what I think
What's
it
that?
is? I think it was his answer. I don't know who asked the question, but the offseason national championship thing.
Yeah.
And it was his response, non-response to that. You could tell he was pissed. But, and he said, but part of it was I don't want to put too much or say too much or expectation. Now that you mentioned Banks' name, I think that was part of the reason that we expected so much from Banks is how he was talked about in the
single digit.
Because I didn't.
Absolutely.
That's the first time I thought of it.
Yeah.
It was when Mitch just said Banks. So some of that is like carryover from past wounds. You know what I mean?
What we also didn't get was, hey, Micah Mazuka really needs to get it figured out. He came in and some guys, it just takes time to adjust to, what the new way of doing things is. We don't do it the same here.
Close as he
didn't get any of that.
Hey, to the good, we haven't had any real glaring issues, right? That was as close as he got.
I mean, the only thing that you walk out of there kind of wondering about is the number of players who were hurt. We already knew about the offensive linemen and, some of the other guys, of course, like Carter Nelson, who were coming off surgery. But like when he started rattling off Jameer Khan, there were a couple of, what's that?
Jalen
George. Yeah, there were a couple. We knew about Dawson Merritt, but there were a few in there where I was like, that's a downer. Like that's a guy, Jalen George. Yeah, that's a guy that I think we the coaches felt like they really wanted to see in the spring. And maybe they still will be able to see enough of him. He's just not going to obviously be, I don't know what his injury is, but he's, clearly not going to be out there scrimmaging. So you would hope that they can get it. And I think he's made a good impression. So, yeah, that because of the position that it is, it would, like, if he would have said like Elijah Pritchett can't go this spring, that would have, he didn't, fortunately, that would have been a really tough one to digest. And I think Jalen George is similar in that.
Oh, Mitch, let me get you out of here on this. And hopefully I think I may have a chance to see you in June. Are you Friday game or Saturday game for Royals Dodgers?
In June. Oh, yeah. Friday. I'm going Friday night, the 27th.
Saturday. Let me ask you though.
We're taking my team and coaching a tournament down there on Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, Frank. Are you at?
Not at the K.
I thought
you're not playing at the K.
Not at the K. How?
But I'll be there on Friday night.
What's your level of excitement on Caglione?
It's measured because I know we're not going to see him in the big leagues for a few months at least. I'm excited to see him in Omaha. I hope he doesn't skip AAA. And I don't think JJ Piccolo does that. I think that like they're not, Alex Gordon did, and that was sad. Although he made an appearance later. I think that he starts in right now he's probably they're probably scratching their head about, do we start him in high A? Because that was definitely the plan going in. I mean, he's hitting the cover off the ball. Yeah. And maybe just goes to Double A. That'd be cool. And then if that happens, and then you really accelerate the process, you could see him in Omaha before, like, around Memorial Day, or certainly before the 4th of July. I was thrilled that they drafted him, because I saw him up close and I wrote about him. So I didn't really get to know him, but I got to know his story and his path at the College World Series last year. So I was very excited that I was hoping when the draft started, knowing where the Royals were at, that he was going to be there. He was the guy that I wanted to see them get. I don't care about the position that he played and what they have at first base. I just feel like he's going to be a very solid big leaguer. So don't rush it, but all signs are good, and I'd like to see him at Warner Park for a couple months this year.
I assume you'll slot the White Sox last in the division, but do you feel like you have a good handle on the Central?
I'm sure the Guardians will be good. Tigers looked good last year at times. I don't know. No, I haven't studied it. I don't really do that. I don't have time for that. But when the season starts, I'll have a good handle on my Royals, and then you'll pretty quickly start to see them play the other teams in the division. My 14-year-old does. Like, he could probably tell you the entire batting order and starting rotation for all of those teams, and I'll just rely on him if I have a question about it. Like, who's going to be good? Right. What's that?
You're raising them right. That's okay.
Yeah, it's out of my hands at this point. Like, I don't even know where he gets his information. Honestly, like, are you watching game? No, I mean, it all comes from different channels than the way that I've ever digested sports. But whatever sport it is, like, he has. I mean, maybe, I don't know if he just has a photographic memory or whatever it is, but his ability to just come with names is kind of shocking to me.
Picking up the phone and calling Shafe. Yeah, don't be excited about that Bo Naylor guy. A little swing and miss behind the plate. Nah, I'm just kidding, Mitch.
I mean, 14-year-old is like peak, know everybody on the roster energy. Like, that was
right.
That was
I was that way, I guess, because of the baseball cards.
Right?
I don't know how it works for kids today. I just
it's
admire
those video games,
Good genes, man. That's what it is. It's genes.
Mitch, we appreciate the time as always. We will talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks, guys.